Well, you are most welcome to this seminar today on Russian public opinion trends. And with us today we have Professor Alexey Levinson, and we are really pleased to have him here because Alexey Levinson, he is one of the most famous Russian sociologists. He's from the Levada Center in Moscow, and where he heads the section for social research. And he is also professor at the High School of Economic Studies in Moscow, and writing in the Russian papers and journals, and the author of several books. So Professor Levinson will first give a presentation of about 45 minutes, and then we will have the comments by Pcarolina Vendil Pallin, and most of you probably know her already. She's the Deputy Director of Research for the Russia Studies at the Swedish Defense Research Institute. And then after that we will open the floor for questions from the audience. But first, Professor Levinson, please, you have the floor.
Yeah. Good morning, good afternoon, everybody. And let me start with my many thanks for you, all of you, coming here to know something about my country. And I'm also very thankful to the Institute of International Relations, who supported my private initiative to share the information that my organization is collecting for years and years. It is my I would say private initiative, but I attribute a very big importance to this because the situation in the world and in Europe is such that my opinion is the nations should know better about each other and also about what people think. For the politicians, maybe the information, the most important kind of information is what the politicians of the other side do think. I have nothing to say about that. I'm not a politologist, I'm not a criminologist, and I know nothing about what are the trends in Russian politics. I'm going to report about one and only one kind of information, that is the information that was collected by means of public opinion polls, nationwide opinion polls that our institute is collecting on the regular basis. We claim to represent the opinion of the whole Russian population. Please mind that the data belong to Levada Center. While citing, please refer to Levada Center. The conclusions and the remarks belong to me personally, and the responsibility is mine. The figures you will see there reflect the proportion of people who have chosen the specific answer prepared by the researchers for them, or who have, if something else is not said. Now, I think that this audience may be interested in three questions of about the current state of affairs in Russia. What about sanctions from the United States and Western countries? What about the politics of Russian Federation after the attachment of Crimea? And what about Russian population, whether they will say, step out with some kind of protest. I think that these three questions are important. There are many others, and if you will present your questions, I will try my best to answer. Now, I'm citing here the beginning and the end of a long list of the problems that Russian population consider to be most pressing, most burning, and you may see very easily that the problems of economic, so to say, economic kind are on the very top of the list. The prices, the unemployment. The war in Ukraine is number 6 in this list. It was the list was collected in February of this year. As to the human rights or justice, these problems, they are mentioned least frequent. Only 2 or 3 or 4% name them, and to be sincere, the 2% is below the margin of error of our measurement, so we cannot even be sure this is really 2%. Now, I am presenting here the exact wording of the question, the answers to which are treated in Russian press and in Russian public as Putin's rating. I'm not sure the English term is used, say, properly, but this is already what Russians are talking about. How is rating today? Is rating rising or is rating falling down? And let's keep this word for this parameter. Anyway, whatever is the name, the sociological substance which is behind that is extremely important. And let me stress, being a sociologist, that this parameter is not reflecting something considering the personality of Mr. Vladimir Putin. It is reflecting very important things about the state of affairs in Russian society and in Russian public opinion. The first this sorry this in this column a very important thing is mentioned, that since the first day of his appearance on the political scene of Russian Federation, I mean on the topmost position, Vladimir Putin never scored less than 60% of this kind approval from Russians. It is unprecedented for all kinds of countries, to say nothing about countries like, say, Uzbekistan or some other Asian countries where the state of affairs and state of the public opinion is totally different, and it is not, so to say, free expression of, or we don't know whether it's really free expression of people's feelings. As to Russia, we may, I am sure, and my agency and myself, we claim to be sure that this is really what Russians do think and what they do say while being interviewed on this matter. So, for all period of his office, being a president and a Prime Minister of Russian Federation, Vladimir Putin never got less than 60%. Sometimes it was 60-something and 70-something. And in two cases, in the year of 2008 and in the year of 2014, the so-called rating reached 88% point, totally unprecedented for many other countries and situations. Now, in this year, in January and February, it is near 85-86%, which is also very high. This means that the symbolic solidarity of Russian population is that high. Let me say that it is not the expression of the popularity, like with, I don't know, people from media or from cinema. It is not the people's love in true sense of the word. It's not even sympathy. It is, and it is not just the direct political support. All these parameters are measured by our polls and our research, and they are different from what we see now. This is just the approval in total, the approval, the general approval, and we consider this to be the attribute or the sign of the loyalty of people, not to personality of Vladimir Putin, but to Russia, to Russian Federation. This is what is behind this parameter, and again, this is my interpretation of that. If you have more questions on this matter, we can discuss it later. Now, 3 or 4 years ago, the tendencies were among Russians to wish to replace or to expect that Mr. Putin will be replaced by some other persons. Somewhere about half of the population supported this idea that on the next elections some other person will take the place of Mr. Putin. Now, in the first 10 years of Putin's presidency, Russian population thought of nobody else but Putin to be on the place of president. Then there came the new ideas that some other person may come there. But now, after the events in Ukraine, Russian public opinion reversed back to this idea that Vladimir Putin should stay where he is. The Muscovites are somehow different from the other parts of the country. Now, to the events in Crimea. I'm not sure my wording is correct, but I tried to translate the Russian word присоединение with this word attachment. Please keep this in mind. And the reflection of this event in popular mind and in popular parlance is the wording that is Krym nash. There are two different Russian words, so to say, split into one, fused into one, Krym nash, and this became a sort of a slogan or a logo, very important for depicting the new situation in Russian public opinion, not in politics, but in public opinion. The reunification of Russians happened under this motto, Krym nash. So this is a very important feature of the time, if not of today, but of near yesterday. But let me stress that it is not that piece of land, not this peninsula with the naval base there, with health resorts there, with Black Sea beaches there, which is that important for the bulk of Russians. The main meaning of what happened is for them the position that Russia, with her leader Vladimir Putin, has demonstrated to the whole world. That is the position of a great power again. Again, that means like Soviet Union. The fact that the will expressed by the Western countries and by the United States was forcefully violated by Russian government, invigorated Russian public opinion, was the reason for them to be proud of their country. This is a very specific situation after years of, say, friendship relationships with many Western countries, especially Germany and with the United States as well. The confrontation that emerged after these events was not the thing that upset Russians, but quite the reverse. Russians became, well, say in many quotation marks, happy because their country, their mother country, now is acting in the way they expected it or her to do. And if we come back to our surveys of this period since, say after Yeltsin and on, we can collect from that reminiscence that Russians wished to have two main things: the economy to be recovered, restored after the collapse of the 90s, and the position of the country to be restored as a position of the great power. As to the economic matters, Russians are not that satisfied with what is going on, even before the crisis of the last year. But as to the political part of that, as to this great power issue, they are satisfied, and this is the reason the so-called rating of President Putin is that high. Now, what happened in Crimea and on was not a usual warfare, as you all know, and Russians know this as well. This was called a hybrid warfare by our experts, and this is my idea that this hybrid warfare was also reflected by a kind of a hybrid thinking of Russians. What does this mean? It means that one and the same thing is confessed and denied, accepted and denied at the same time. This is a very important, this is a very, I would say, trivial thing for the diplomats, for the relationships in the diplomat circles on the level of high politics, but it is something very unusual for the popular thinking, because people rather think this or that. They agree or disagree. Now, with what is going on this Crimea theater or Ukraine theater, is one at the same time denied and agreed upon and agreed with. So you see, Russians are against involvement of Russian military in the warfare there. And Russians also say that they will be positive if they know that Russian military men are there. We have to accept this duality, or how to say, twofold nature of Russian public opinion at the moment. It is a highly debated issue whether Russians do understand what is the price or what is the cost of these political and military acts that are executed by Russian government in Ukraine and in Crimea. Now we may say that Russians, I mean the ordinary Russians, they do understand that this is a kind of a burden on their shoulders. But the line on the bottom, in the bottom of this slide, shows that about 2/3 of them, I mean of Russians, say, anyway, Russia should go on with its policy. I think it's very important, and this is partly the answer to one of the questions I started with. Russians are aware about the reaction of the neighboring and other countries that are important, whose opinion is important for them. That is of Germany, of other European countries. Sweden is not an exclusion from that. Russians deny that it was the violation of the international law. But they do understand that it was against the will of the international community, so to say. And they do understand that the image of Russia has deteriorated in the minds of their neighbors and former partners and all that. But again, in the bottom we have the line saying that whatever they, I mean them in the West think, we should go on with our policy. A very important moment here is most of Russians do not rely the attitude to their country to what the country has done. The very popular idea of the present day is that just the eternal attitude of the West toward Russia was and is hostile. And what happened in Crimea and what is happening in eastern Ukraine is just a pretext for the Western countries, especially for the United States, to express its this hostility, this hostile attitude. By means of this explanation, Russians feel themselves, so to say, free from responsibility of what was done, what was done on the political scene. So this is more historical. This is not just a political event, but cultural historical one. And nothing can be done with this hatred from the West against Russia. This idea has become popular in very recent time. It is not, let me say that it is not the eternal perception of the West in Russia. Better say the elements of this approach, the elements of disbelief in the intentions of the Western countries, in their attitude to Russia, was always present since John the Terrible times, or even maybe even before that. But it was not the prevailing sentiment. Now, the sanctions are felt. Many Russian families experience some troubles and difficulties because of the sanctions, and they even expect to have more of this. But again, I don't have a bottom conclusion there, but the sanctions are not and the troubles caused by them are not the reason to change the policy, are not the reason to urge from the government or from Vladimir Putin to stop it doing that and to change the politics. No. It's very important that being on the on a very high I wouldn't say on the brink, but close to the brink of very high probability of conflict between Russia and the Western countries as such, Russians don't think there is a serious risk of the World War III. No, more than half of Russians don't think there is such kind of a risk. Moreover, they are in position of being ready to improve, to restore, to repair the relations, the good relations with the Western countries, provided, it is not written here, but believe me, provided Russia, the Western countries do, as the Russians say, do respect Russia in proper way. Do respect Russia as a great power. This is, now again, I'm not talking about politics, I'm talking about people's ideas. So, people's ideas is, let's say, a kind of a symbolic entity, and they are also about some symbolic gestures, symbolic things. If Russians are persuaded by their media, by their leaders, or by whoever else, that the Western partner is respecting Russia properly, has acknowledged that Russia is a great power on the world scene, I am pretty sure that it is enough to return to the detente or whatever kind of very good political relationships with the West, with again shaking hands and having very, very good exchange of cultural and economic kind with the West. This is a, maybe you think this is a tricky part of the matter, but it is it's that. Again, this is my personal opinion. Now, I cannot go without remarks on the tragedy that happened in my country and in my city recently. Boris Nemtsov was not that much a popular opposition leader. He used to be, but he and other guys, they are not that much popular. But what happened there made lots of Russian. I don't have any figures to support my conclusions now, but the assassination of a man who was not guilty in any kind of violence himself, was not a military and was not any other whose hands are soaked with somebody's blood. So this was really a great shock for Russians. Anyway, the matter of having opposition in our political machine is a very difficult one, but if we ask people, and we did, does Russia need opposition as a political element, they say yes, and nothing. These are data of recent time, but nothing new in this. Russians never changed their mind since the days of the so-called Democrats in the beginning of the 90s, that opposition is a must, and this is a prerequisite of the normal development of the country. And as to the opposition acts and deeds, not the figures, but acts and deeds, the only legal remaining form of that is manifestations. The last one has taken place after Nemtsov assassination, and you know that it was rather many people attended that. And it's very important that over half of the population think that this is a legitimate form of expressing the opinion, and it belongs to the democratic democratic ways of behavior, and they don't think that it is a destructive form of political behavior. I'm approaching the end of my presentation, and I think that what you have seen on this screen can support the conclusion, the three conclusions I myself come to. First, about the sanctions. There is no, my opinion is that there is no any real chance that sanctions in that form that they have now, and even in the form they can take in future in more harsh or more strict sense, can change the situation in Russia. They can deteriorate the economic life, but they will not change the minds of Russians, first. Second, this is, I would say, the most, from my side, the most, the least supported conclusion because it depends whether Russian government will decide to make any further steps or not depends not on the Russian public opinion. But if we ask people, should Russia do next steps like similar to that which was done in case with Crimea, they will say rather not. I think many steps that will or would or could be done by Russian government would be supported by Russians in this in the situation we have now. But if Russians are asked about their idea, should we go on with steps that are like one with Crimea, they would say rather not. And the third conclusion is about the protest movement. We know that Russians do support protest actions, and I have just cited that. But if we ask about their own participation in this kind of actions, the level of answers drop dramatically, and it is somewhere below 10%. And this doesn't mean that 10% of Russians, which is well about 10 million of people, will go someday on the streets. That would be much and much too much. But these 10% are scattered all over the population, and it means that only 1/10 of in any group of people would say, "Yeah, I will go." So practically, it means that nobody will, or a very tiny proportion of people will. We may like these conclusions or not, but I think they are, well, more or less close to the reality. But to be very close to the reality, it is a very difficult matter for any prognosis, including mine. So this is what I want to conclude with. Thank you very much for your attention, and please visit our website and you will see a lot of interesting information there. Thank you very much.
Well, thank you for giving us this map of, well, very contradictory tendencies and opinions, and I mean, which to my mind also are signs of a not healthy society. But I give the floor to Carol, Vendil, Pallin.
Thank you. I am a politologist, so I'm here very much as a student who learns from a sociologist. Now, I have a few comments that I brought with me because I follow Levada's polls, and I always find them interesting, but it also gives me a lot of food for thought, and questions come to mind. Now, recently, when you go through laws, or when you go through official speeches coming from the Kremlin and different initiatives, it's quite clear that there's a great focus on influencing the young. I mean, I could go through a lot of examples of this. There's a law on how to foster a patriotic view among the young. There's the youth camp in Seliger each year. There's a special agency for youth affairs, Rosmolodezh. But also there's a reintroduction of a Soviet program under the banner, I'm ready to work and ready for the defense of the motherland. Now, this could just be a case of the Russian authorities wanting to influence the young when they have them, because they have them in the school and during military service, of course. But There's also a sense, I think, when you go through speeches, that the authorities think that the young are especially vulnerable for propaganda from the West, for being for getting the wrong ideas. So my question to you would be, in your polls, can you see any evidence of this? Is there a reason for the Russian authorities to specialize in influencing the young and save them from dangerous views? And also, can you see any effects of this official policy on the views of the young in your polls? My second question would be on long-term values as opposed to opinions. What you told us about today were the opinions of the Russian population during the past year, but there are also the values that you sort of develop at a more basic level. You can correct me because you're the sociologist, based on your experiences. And basically, usually when you talk about this, it's the experiences that you get until you're about 25, and then your personality is formed. And also in connection with that, I think when you talked about how everyone liked this policy of Krymnash because it gave back a pride in being Russian, of being part of a great power. I think they tapped into something that you could see in sociology before that. There was a longing for a return to tradition, for Russia being a great power again, going back to family values and so on. So they've tapped into something that was present in the population already. So a comment on the durability of the opinions that you told us about today. Thirdly, I'll put a proposition to you. When I go through official speeches, when I look at official documents, I see a rapid growth in military rhetoric. Even when you talk about non-military matters, it's done in a very military language. And you have the rapid growth of organizations, družinas, militias, and so on. So I'd like to ask you if you see any evidence of this in the material. I keep hearing the song from the early 1990s where a Russian pop group sung about how Russians were a population that were fed the ashes of great victories. And it seems to me that we're going back to that again. Finally, and this has to do with the murder of Nemtsov that you brought to our attention in some of your last slides. Sometimes I get a feeling that in the midst of all this bravado of Krymnash and how Russia is feared and respected again, there's also a sense of foreboding, that something is waiting around the corner. And in connection with that, I mean, I can't really see an exit strategy for Russia from the situation it's brought itself into. And can you see, I know that you're involved in focus groups as well as opinion polls. Do you get a sense of that people are worried about what is the next step? How do we get out of this situation? So I'll close there with comments because I'd love to hear your response.
Thank you.
Please.
I think you all agree that the questions are not easy ones, yeah? Maybe the easiest is the first one about the youth. You know, if these guys who are inviting young people to these silly gatherings and are spending a lot of money in this campaigning. If they would ask me about should they do that, I would advise them to spend their money for something else. Why? not because I'm not, it is not nothing, it has nothing to do with my political position, whether I like what is said on these Seliger meetings or I do not. Things are totally different. From the very beginning of our measurements, we know that the youngest proportion of Russians is most loyal to the leaders and to the government. Not least, but most loyal to the government. It's very different from the experience of many other countries in the West, including, say, Ukraine. The opposition can be recruited from the youngest proportion of the population anywhere, but not in Russia. There are some young guys who are of very, I would say, oppositional sentiments, but the proportion of them in their age group is less than among, say, among the people who are retired. And so I would say, spend your money there. That's it. One could ask, why is that? This is a very, very important question. Very important. Let me just give one hint to that. From Gorbachev, and even pre-Gorbachev times, or from Gorbachev times, Russian propaganda or Soviet propaganda was based on the presupposition that our past is in a sense better than our future. And what we have lost is in a sense better than what we have acquired. In perestroika times, it was very strongly pronounced idea in propaganda. But later on, very different political parties or political entities used this kind of rhetorics and this kind of reasoning. If you take what our pro-communist newspapers and magazines say, you would see that the Soviet times are definitely better than the ones we have now. If you ask people of political neutral orientation, they will say that Brezhnev times are much better than present-day times. And nobody knows what is our future. So our past is what is our treasure. And this kind of rhetorics gives the elder population, the people of my kind, a kind of symbolic preponderance over the youth. It is a very specific feature of the moment. For instance, very different from the Stalin's, the classical Stalin's era, where younger generation and everything which was young was praised much higher than anything that was old. So I stop on that, but as to the values, the values of something that belong, I would say, the values of fundamentalist kind are the ones that are most visible if we check the, so to say, the list of values of average Russian. They think this is reliable, all the rest is unreliable. And it has some relations to what I said about this future and past proportion equation. Because of that, the durability of opinions, if we take the basic part of this, not what is related to the last-minute political situation, is the durability is very, very high. And what we know from our polls is somehow diametrically opposite to the very widely known probably English proverb that the one who was not on the left in his youth, or his or her youth, has no heart, and the one who is on the conservative has no mind, yeah? I'm retranslating it from Russian. We have something of the reversed kind. Russians are attached to the left side, leftist values in their elder age. And this is the dominant discourse in popular mind, even influencing the mindset of the youngs. And if we ask people about, say, the human rights or the so-called freedoms that are cited in our constitution and in international law as well, we will see no big difference between the young and the old, but for one and very specific thing. The freedom to go and to go abroad and back is cherished very much by young and not by the old, but this is for very practical reason. People who are older, they are less mobile and they have less resources, including money. Now, about the militarism, I think you touched a very important point here, because there is a kind of a trap in this idea or word of about militarism. Russia has a big army and is manufacturing lots of armament. And it may look as a highly militarized country, which is not the case. But if we think about the mindset of people, then the value of the military in very general sense is very high. When we ask about the institutions Russians respect most or feel that are respected most, then we have always the president on the top, and army and security services are very high, scoring very high. Well, they sometimes one is number two and sometimes another. So, this is this kind of a triad: president and security services and the army. So we may say, and our military may be happy that army is respected by the Russian population and very high. But if we ask, do you want your son or your grandson to be conscripted to the army? We used to have the prevailing answer, no. The army as a real institution which can be the situation their kid will come into was treated very negatively. So the value of the military order, military honor, military way of organizing the society, that is subordination, strict subordination and all that, was and is very high. What's happening with the army as a real entity, it's a different story. I cannot leave it as it is. I have to say that what is treated as a great success of Russian military in this Crimea case has raised the attitude to the so to say real army considerably. But still this difference between the idea of the military order and the real militarization, still the threshold between these still is very, very important. I'm sorry if my explanation was too complicated. This is a really complicated matter. And the last one about something expecting us around the corner. Right you are. Russians are, I would say, are merged into this Kremnash enthusiasm, or used to be merged into that. Well, almost not 100%, but 80-something% of the population were in this very specific and I would say very hot state of mind. But in everybody's mind, in every single person's mind, there were some 15%, I would say, 15% left, and this 15% were whispering to them that maybe things are not that in that perfect state of affairs, and maybe you should think about something else, about something different from what we have today. And there were some people, you could find their opinions in internet and in some newspapers, not very many of them, who expressed this overtly. So some hesitance, or how to say, some uneasiness in the popular mind, it is there. And some people say that even in the higher levels of the society, the ones that are, so to say, beyond beyond our reach as opinion researchers, there are signs of some, I don't say, concern or hesitation or what. And I think this is quite normal. Russians are not insane. Russia is not mad. Russia and our people is not has not gone mad, as some observers say. No, they understand that this situation should and would transform into something else. The main enigma is into what? That's it.
I will open the floor to questions. I have a question myself first, and I can start with what you said when, well, people wondering what will come next? Because, and it's my question is about the interpretation of the contradictory views that are found in the map you gave us about public opinion. I mean, there are these contradictions which could be a sign of there is a transition period going one way or another. But one could also say that there is a remarkable support for the regime, which gives quite a remarkable one. I mean, support for the regime, for the leader, for the official policy, and it raises questions. I mean, what we see is that kind of a mobilized population, which will really has given everything away to the leader and to the regime, and you decide and we'll follow. I mean, we are with you, which would be a really scary case, I think. Or is it a sign of, how to say, a broken society, where you accept the situation as it is, and I mean, maybe you find some compensation for hard conditions in a way of, I mean, criminage. But in general, it's a population that, well, is apolitical in a way. They are given up of influencing in a way. I mean, what would you say about this? Is it a broken one, or is it a mobilized one?
Well, first let me say that many analysts, including my colleagues in Levada Center, they do think that our society is experiencing the extreme kind of mobilization. And I think they are, this is correct. But let me approach the issue from some other side. I think even if the mobilization is there, society is not split. It is, I would say, rather. I don't have the term to describe this state of minds, but I can say what has happened to that. We all know that in the beginning of 1990s, the communist prospect has ceased to exist in Russian polity and in minds of most of Russians. Whether you were an ardent communist or you were just somebody following this, as they say, the general line, you understand that no communist prospect exists for your country in foreseeable future, for whatever reason. But in this very moment of the beginning or the end of the 80s and beginning of the 90s, another prospect, another possible future was brought to the people's attention. That was the democratic. The democracy seemed to be much nearer than the communist future. Grigory Yavlinsky promised that within 500 days we will come to that. And he was not the only, he was not an insane guy. Lots of others thought that there are automatic social mechanisms that would bring us to that future that easily. You just get rid of, so to say, of the chains, and the people, the people from big P, the people will easily and naturally step into a totally new type of social organization that is democracy. By the way, being here in Sweden, let me tell you that the idea of Swedish socialism was extremely popular, or Swedish capitalism was extremely popular for several years. I don't think it has real relation to what was in your country. But the idea was that we combine a highly developed capitalist industry with nice results of its performance, like Volvo car and other very pleasant things, and social guarantees of socialist kind, that every person has everything he or she needs for decent living, and that will be made easily and within 1, 2, 3 years. Within 1, 2, 3 years, this idea was frustrated as forcefully as the communist perspective. And our society was, I would say, well, this double frustration is something which is really terrible for the popular mind. I think this happened to the German society in late 1920s, and the consequences of that are widely known. I hope we in Russia can escape this course of events. But the idea of great power that is neither communist nor capitalist, and nobody cares what is the, so to say, political or economical basis of that, but it is great. This is the escape from this political and social and cultural, I would say, dead ends, two dead ends. So I know that I am talking about another kind of political mythology, but I want to explain the origin of that. That this is the way the popular mind is, I would say, curing itself of these two frustrations. And let me now come back to Vladimir Putin's support. This is, I am not going to say about his own personality or his personal acts as a president or as a popular figure, but as a figure of the popular mind, he was just that, the focal point of this construction of going out of this historical, very harsh situation of these two frustrations. Nobody would say Vladimir Putin is a communist leader, no. And now nobody will, not nobody, but not many would say he's a democratic, I mean in Russian, in terms of Russian political vocabulary, like Boris Yeltsin was. He's politically neutral in this sense of the word, And this is the reason he is supported by so many former communists and former Democrats. And this is very important. That's my answer.